let's talk about some of the environments we are going to work within. We define some key terms: total revenue, total cost, and profit. Some of these you know already, but more formally, we will assume in this lecture that firms' goal is to maximize profit. You would agree that it's not every firm that chases profit maximization. Some firms exist just to have a bigger market share, expanding their clout over the market and grabbing a bigger market share. Some, like the NGO, they do not exist to maximize profit, probably just to break even and so on. So there are varying reasons why firms may exist, or varying objectives of firms. In this lecture, probably throughout the class, we will assume that firm's goal is to maximize profit. Okay, what then is profit? Profit is total revenue minus total cost. Total revenue is the amount you receive from the sales. So total revenue right here will usually be the price times the quantity you have sold. Okay, that's the total revenue, the amount you obtain from the sales, and the total cost, okay, all the costs you incurred to produce the item. You subtract the cost from the sales amount or the revenue, and that is your profit. I'm sure all of us know what profit is, but more formally, we will say it's total revenue minus total cost. Okay. All right, let's keep going. Let's define some few costs. We have explicit cost and implicit, as the names suggest. Okay, in English grammar, explicit will mean directly. And so explicit costs require, okay, a cost is classified as explicit if you really, okay, made an outlay, okay, if money went out in paying for that item, then that payment is classified as an explicit cost. Paying of salaries, buying of raw materials, there is a direct outflow of money, okay, from the company or from the businessman to the supplier of that good or service. Once there is an explicit or direct payment, we call that explicit cost. Okay, and then we have implicit. Here there is no, okay, an outlay of cash. It's mainly the opportunity cost of the owner's time. Okay, if you run your own business, you are sweeping your own office instead of employing somebody. If you had employed somebody, you would have paid money. That would have been an explicit cost. If you sweep the office yourself, you are not paying yourself for the sweeping, but you are using your time. Your time could have been spent somewhere to make money. So if you look at our lesson 1, we talk about opportunity cost. Okay, the alternative for gone is your opportunity cost. You could have used your time to make money. You've spent your time to sweep. So we think that spending your time to sweep is not for free. You have lost money elsewhere. And so that is an implicit cost. It will become clearer as we pick an example coming up shortly. Okay, so if I think about explicit cost, as the word suggests, you've made direct payment or there is a fiscal payment. Either the payment is, by the way, I've been using the word direct loosely. Essentially, explicit just means money has been paid, whether direct or indirectly. Implicit will usually mean you didn't pay for the service. Somehow you use family labor or your own effort, and for that matter, you didn't dole out cash to pay yourself. Okay, so all these costs matter to us as economists, but you would see, okay, in the next slide that accounting profit is different from economic profit. Okay, now usually it is said that accounting profit is bigger than economic profit. Here is the reason. Accounting profit is total revenue minus total explicit cost. The accountant is only counting costs that involve the payment of money. But an economist takes total revenue, subtracts explicit costs and implicit cost, because it is a cost to us. those of us who are economists, we think of implicit cost as a cost. If I drive to Legon 30 minutes to teach, when I close, I drive another 30 minutes, it makes 1 hour. If I thought for 1 hour, as an economist, I don't think the 1 hour I used to thought was the cost. If they want to pay me wages for teaching for 1 hour, I'm thinking they should pay me for 2 hours because I spend time also driving. Okay, going there, I feel like it's a cost to me. If I hadn't driven to Legon, I would have spent that 30 minutes, 30, make 1 hour, making money elsewhere. So economists thinks about all the implicit costs in addition to the explicit cost. So we are minusing, the economist is minusing a bigger amount, which is both explicit and implicit, while the accountant is minusing only the explicit. And for that matter, the economic profit is lower, okay, than the accounting profit. Okay, economic profit subtracts, okay, too many things. Okay. All right, let's keep going. Hopefully we are making progress. Okay, let's take this example, which is supposed to clarify the difference between economic profit and accounting profit. Okay, now supposing the rent, okay, on an office space has just increased by 500 cedis each month. If any office space you want to rent, let's say in Accra, has gone up by 500 Ghana cedis. Let's look at two scenarios. What happens to accounting profit and economic profit? In two cases. Case one, if you rent your office space, interesting. You've been renting your office space. We've said that the rents for office space have gone up by 500 cedis. So what are the implications in terms of explicit cost and implicit cost, and subsequently accounting profit and economic profit? What if you own the space you'll be using as your office? You don't actually rent it. Will this increment in rental price affect you? Think about it. Rent prices for offices have gone up by 500 cedis. Case one, you've been paying actually for rent. So what's the implications for you? Definitely you are going to face a higher rent of 500 cedis. So the explicit cost goes up. What about the one who owns the office himself? He's not going to pay 500 cedis more to anybody, but we think he's suffering an implicit cost. You will see, okay, in the answers. So here we go. Okay, if you've been renting the office space, then of course you are going to pay 500 cedis more. So explicit cost has gone up by 500 cedis. Okay, when they are computing your accounting profit and economic profit, they are going to subtract 500 cedis more. That's how much more you are paying for rent. So both accounting profit and economic profit that subtract explicit cost will fall by 500 cedis. Okay, I hope this is clear. Okay, now, what if you own the office space? If you own the office space, you are not paying explicitly to anybody. So explicit costs do not change. So accounting profit does not change. The accountant hasn't seen a new cost on his books or in his books, okay, because you own the office space. However, an economist thinks, no, your implicit cost has gone up. Look, if you were to rent out your own office, it's your house you are using. If you were not using it as an office and you rented it out, you would have made 500 cedis more. So you are missing out on 500 cedis more each month because you are using it. And that is a cost to you. It's an opportunity cost, implicit cost, and must be accounted for when you are thinking about profit. So the economist calculating profit will subtract that, okay, as his cost. Look, this is my cost of using my own house. If I had rented it out, it would have been 500 cedis more. So I'm suffering a cost. It's called implicit cost. So accounting profit does not change. because no cost has been recorded in the books as being explicit. But the economist thinks he is losing 5 and this is every month and it's a cost to him. Okay. Hopefully this helps. Let's keep going. Okay. Now we've defined some types of cost. You know, accounting cost, economic cost, implicit cost, explicit cost. You know, profit is total revenue minus total cost. Total cost refers to all the costs you've incurred in producing a good. Total revenue is the price times the quantities you have sold. Okay. So the sales amount you have received is called a total revenue. Excellent. Let's keep going. Now let's take this scenario. We'll be referring to this quite often in the first section of this lecture. So let's see. This is a production function presented in a tabular form. L here is the number of workers you employ. Q is the bags of wheat that you harvest based on the number of people you have employed. So we assume labor is the main input. You are varying. If you employ 0 people, you harvest 0 bags of rice, of wheat, I beg your pardon. If you employ 3 people, you harvest 2,400 bags of wheat. If you employed 5 people, you harvest 3,000 bags of wheat. Now, the cost of the land you are using to farm the wheat is just the same. Okay, you've already paid for the land. So it's 1,000 throughout. The cost of land, essentially, we are saying that whether you are using 1 worker or 2 workers or 3 workers, doesn't change the cost of the land. The cost of the land is fixed. Okay. Okay. Whilst how much you harvest depends, how much you harvest here depends on the number of workers. The cost of land doesn't. Okay. You will later see we call this as fixed cost. Okay. What of cost of labor? If you employ 0 people, you pay 0 salary or wage. It's the cost of using labor. Okay. So in the Americans spell this with O here. I think Europeans have a U somewhere here, labor. Okay, so you see some of these things. Okay. So if you employ 1 person, you pay wages of 2,000. If you employ 2 people, you pay 4,000. So this is called a variable cost. This is a fixed cost. It doesn't change as you produce more. But here, as you produce more from 1,000, 1,800, 2,400, the cost also increases or changes. It's called a variable cost. It's a cost that is varying. Okay, it's varying according to output. It's varying according to output. Okay, so we have cost of land you are using to produce wheat, cost of labor you are employing. So we assume these are the only 2 inputs you need to produce. The raw materials, all those things we can abstract from them. It's not a big deal. Okay, what's the guy's total cost? This farmer, of course, you sum his fixed cost and the variable cost. The cost of land, cost of labor, 3,000. 1,000, 10,000, together when you sum them, 11,000. Okay, from the word total, we are adding these 2 costs. Okay, what do you have to learn here? What you have to learn is that some of the costs do not change, even if you are producing more. Some of the costs actually change when you are producing more. Okay, and total cost, of course, changes because it's a sum of a fixed cost and a variable cost. Excellent. Excellent. I hope you're having fun so far. Let's talk about something we call the marginal cost. Marginal. Okay, small incremental change. Marginal. We've seen this from lesson 1. What is marginal cost? We'll be calling it MC for short. It is the increase in total cost from producing 1 more unit. You are all mathematicians, so you know this looks like a slope of a curve or the gradient, right? It looks like changing y over changing x. What does it mean? When x changes by 1 unit, how does y change? That's the idea of slope. So if you were to produce 1 more, change in quantity, the quantity produced. If you were to produce additional unit, how much does your cost change? So it is the change in total cost as a result of producing an additional unit. By the way, kill will be units produced or output or quantity. TC is total cost. This symbol delta will refer to change. Change, okay? It's also like the derivative of total cost with respect to quantity. Derivative of quantity, sorry, the derivative of total cost with respect to derivative of quantity is the same as change in TC over change in Q, and it's called a marginal cost, MC. Okay, how much does your total cost change if you are to produce one more unit? The additional cost incurred as a result of producing one more unit is the marginal cost. All the marginals are additional. Okay, sounds good. Let's keep going. Oh, I already talked about these guys. What is a fixed cost? They do not vary with the quantity of output produced. So for our farmer, the wheat farmer, his fixed cost was 1,000 for land. Okay. Now, if you paid for an equipment, whether you produce more or not, it doesn't change the cost of the equipment. If you go and rent a wheelbarrow to use to work, whether you are producing 1,000 or 2,000, the cost of wheelbarrow is fixed. Loan payment will also be fixed. Okay, whether you produce more or not, how much you are paying for the loan is fixed. It doesn't change because you are producing more. We are talking about loan payment, not the loan you are going for. Of course, that would depend on how much you need. But repayment of loans is usually a fixed amount. Okay, and then the rent also, okay, usually within a short span, the rent is fixed. You've already rented the office space, rented a factory, and so on. Okay. They do not change as you produce more. If you find any of this controversial, just let me know. What are variable costs? As their name suggests, they vary with the quantity you produce. So in our farmer, you saw that the wages he paid to workers varied as he produced more. And of course, total cost is the sum of fixed cost and variable cost. Please pay attention to our symbols: FC, fixed cost; variable cost, VC; TC, total cost. Total cost is the sum of fixed cost and variable cost. Okay, sounds good. Let's keep going. Interesting. We've decided to have an example here and to plot on the graph. Okay, so this is probably better if presented full screen mode, and then you get to see how they arrive. Okay, probably there's no animation here. All right, let's keep going. So we have a table with quantity produced, the output or the unit you produce. Okay, when you produce 0, you have still paid for the land. So your fixed cost is 100. By the way, these numbers are not from the farmers. They are just made up for teaching purposes. But FC, fixed cost, even if you produce 0, your fixed cost is 100. That is the way to spot a fixed cost. It's a fixed, it's sunk cost, it's already paid for. Whether you produce 0, you produce or not, you've already paid for the land. The fixed cost is already paid. Okay, so usually output 0 is where you locate your fixed cost. Okay, of course, when you produce 0, you don't pay variable cost because you haven't produced. So that's the difference. Cost of raw materials. If you don't produce, you have not incurred cost for raw materials. Okay, and total cost. Okay, I'm not going to talk about this column. It's always going to be the sum of these two. Okay, if you produce 3 units, cost of land is the same, and variable cost is 160. So total 260. Okay, important here on this slide is how to put them on the graph. As you can see, fixed cost is the blue one. So it is 100 throughout. So it's going to be a constant. a horizontal line. You see, it's just fixed. And of course, variable cost starts from 0, the origin. Remember, Q is on the x-axis, total cost or cost, either total, variable, fixed costs are recorded on the y-axis. So variable cost starts from the origin. When output is 0, variable cost is 0. It is the easiest way of spotting variable cost. When you don't produce, you don't pay them. Okay, so that starts from the origin, and you can plot the numbers. These numbers, 0, 0 is here, then 170, 1 and 70, you plot the red dots and so on. Okay, total cost is the sum of the red line and the blue line. So of course it will lie above all of them. The green one is the total cost. You are summing this and that. So it will not start from the origin because it doesn't have 0 here. It doesn't. Fixed cost too doesn't start from 0, so it starts above the origin. So if you are presented with these 3 graphs, curves, and you are asked to label them, you must know fixed cost for sure. It's fixed, so it's horizontal. Then the ones that are not horizontal, one starts from the origin, one doesn't. You must know variable cost is the one starting from the origin because 0, 0 lies on the variable cost. If you produce 0, you don't pay it. Okay, and of course, total cost lies above all of them because it's the total of both of them. So you should be able to identify this if it's given to you to label. Okay, let's keep going. Okay. Now our marginal cost, the change in total cost as a result of change in output. Okay, how my total cost changes if you produce 1 more unit, or the additional cost incurred as a result of producing 1 more unit is our marginal cost. As I've said, if you know the total cost curve, its gradient or the slope, okay, at the point is the marginal cost, okay, the way it is computed. Okay, so we are going to calculate the marginal cost to show you. The formula says change in total cost divided by change in quantity. Okay, so look, this will usually, they will put dash here, non-available, right? There is nothing ahead of, on top of 100 or 0. But here, when you are at 170, there is a previous one to subtract. So the numerator becomes here, 170 minus 100 is a change in total cost. 170 minus 100. And what is the change in quantity? It's changed from 0 to 1. So 1 minus 0, that gives us 70. So it's recorded here as a marginal cost. Okay, additional cost incurred because you moved from 0 unit to 1 unit. Okay, let's look at the last one. You can go through the rest, but look, what is 620 minus 480 is 140. Okay, divided by 7 minus 6, which is just 1. Okay, so the challenge for students is that if the differences here are not 1, 1, 1, 1, 1, and they are like 2, 2, 2, let's say 0, 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 12, 14. Okay, if they were like that, then you must remember to divide by 2. So over here, the difference 170 minus 100 is here, and it is 2 minus 0. So 2 minus 0. So you're going to have 70 over 2, which is 35. Okay. This is what students tend to forget because they are used to a case where the differences, the numbers differ by 1, 1, 1, 1. Okay, so keep an eye on that. Okay. There's another useful information on this slide. It says usually marginal cost rises as output rises due to diminishing marginal product. Sometimes marginal cost falls before rising. In other example, marginal cost may be constant. Okay, let's go to a blank sheet and explain. So please remember this. We are going to have like a mirror image of this marginal product, okay, of labor and something like the marginal cost. Marginal cost. There is something called diminishing returns. It says as more and more of a variable input are added to a fixed input, total output initially increases, attains a maximum, okay, and thereafter diminishes. Now, let's say you have a plot of land. So I'm talking now about what we mean by the law of diminishing returns. Think about returns as additional contribution, okay, of the factor production, say labor. If you have a fixed plot of land, we can call it as fixed. It's a fixed plot of land, okay. Or in terms of factors of production, think of this as capital. It's fixed. Assuming you said one person to come and weed this place, it will take longer for him to finish weeding. If you put two people to weed, maybe one will start here and the other will be here. Then they weed the place. If one person would take 5 hours, two people might take 2.5 hours to finish weeding. So every hour, each farm worker is contributing more. Okay, they are doing well, they're efficient. What if you make them 4? So they stay in, so that you had one worker, you've added to the same fixed input, like the capital, like the land, you've increased the workers to 2. Now you've made them 3. You've increased the workers to 4. We believe that if one person will use 5 hours, 2 people will use 2.5 hours, something like that. Okay, it's not exactly 1:1, but that's for teaching purposes. 4 people will take less time. They will do very well quickly. The productivity of each of them is higher. So the work gets done quicker with 4 people. What about 5 people? Yes, that will also increase your productivity on the farm or do the work quickly. The diminishing returns idea means that, look, as you increase the workers, your productivity is going up. They are producing more. They are achieving more quicker. Okay. But if you increase the workers, they become crowded. They become crowded. So it's actually now becoming a cost to you. Before Kofi would throw his cutlass, Amma has to make way for him so that she doesn't get hurt because they are now crowded. There's no space to work. So that is the idea. Now that they are crowded, Kojo has to give space for Amma to throw her cutlass. They are crowded. Productivity is rather lower. It may even now take 10 hours instead of 5 hours. That's the idea of diminishing returns. As you add more workers, initially, total product or your productivity, the additional output from the workers increases. At a point, it will reach a maximum and it will begin to decline. Then we say diminishing returns are set in. So technically, there is a fixed input like a land, and you are adding a variable input like labor. Labor is varying. You are increasing labor. So it's called varying. As you vary input on a fixed input, the contribution of that input, labor, increases initially, but it begins to decline. It now becomes a cost for employing an additional labor. Their contribution is 0 or even sometimes negative. That is here, marginal product of labor. What is the additional contribution of the additional labor? If I employ one more guy, what is he contributing? Marginal product of labor. What is the additional contribution of the additional worker? That's what we say. Initially, it rises, it can plateau, and it can fall. When the additional worker is very useful and his contribution is rising, remember, anything that looks like this is rising, anything that looks like this is falling. As the additional worker is very useful, increasing productivity, we are saying that your additional cost of producing or even employing one more worker is decreasing the additional cost. You employ one more worker, he is very useful, his contribution is higher or positive. It means you are enjoying a declining cost. This is marginal cost. So additional cost of producing is declining. Okay, when this becomes flat, this also becomes flat. But when your workers become useless, additional worker is useless, not contributing much, even negative, and so his marginal product of labor is falling, it means it's becoming expensive to produce one more unit. So marginal cost rises. Okay, it's the reason why a lot of the time marginal cost will have a U shape, because it falls initially and begins to rise. It's now being expensive to produce additional units. It's now expensive to produce additional unit because the contribution of the additional unit is actually negative, declining. So these two things mirror each other. Okay, so I'm going to go back to the slide. That's what they mean by what is it? Marginal cost initially falls and begins to rise. Okay, so here we are. This is the meaning of this, that usually marginal cost rises as you produce more, okay, due to diminishing marginal product. Sometimes marginal cost falls before rising, okay. It falls before rising. So our MC is going to look U-shaped. Okay. Excellent. Now, let's talk about another term. You have quantity produced, the fixed cost, maybe cost of land is fixed, or cost of renting the office is fixed. Let's calculate the average fixed cost. Average fixed cost is the fixed cost divided by the quantity of output. Average fixed cost. Average of the fixed cost. Take the fixed cost, divide it by the quantity you produce. Remember, we cannot divide by 0. So this is what? NA, not available. Now, 100 divided by 1, 100. 100 divided by 3, 33.33. 100 divided by 2, 50. That's your average fixed cost. Another interesting thing here, you must always remember. Notice that average fixed cost falls as Q rises. Do you see that it is falling from 100 to 50? There is a reason. The firm is spreading its fixed cost over a larger and larger unit of output. The same number here, 100, is being divided by 1. Later, the same fixed number is divided by 2. The same fixed number is divided by 3. Check out the denominator is increasing. So you are spreading a fixed number over an increasing unit. Of course, when the denominator goes up, or the entire quotient falls, okay, we call the division quotient. You know sum, you know difference. Sum means addition, difference means subtraction, product means you are multiplying, quotient means you are dividing. Okay, quotient. As you increase, if a denominator goes up, the entire quotient declines. So you are dividing a fixed, okay, cost, a fixed number. You are just increasing the denominator as you produce more to look at your average fixed cost. And for that matter, average fixed cost falls as Q rises. As you produce more per unit, average fixed cost, okay, or per unit fixed cost, yes, declines, it falls. Let's define this one. Average variable cost. Average of the variable cost. So you know variable costs already, they change as you produce more. You are just dividing by the quantity you produce for the average variable cost. Average variable cost will behave like our marginal cost because of same reason. Okay, it may fall initially and before rising. Okay, your average variable cost will fall as you produce more. It may begin to rise as diminishing return sets in. Okay, I hope you are doing well so far. Now, whenever we talk about total cost, we can also talk about the average total cost. Remember, moment ago, the last 2 or 3 minutes, we've talked about the average of a fixed cost, average of a variable cost. So when you sum them, it's the average of average total cost. So you can have your total cost divided by the output, number of output produced, you get your average total cost. This is it. Take your total cost, divide by the quantity produced, you get your average total cost. You will see why these are useful later on. Okay, these are numbers that every firm must keep an eye on to make production decisions. That's why we are worrying you going through all these. So either you get your average total cost, which is your actual per unit cost of producing. Okay, think about it. Take your total cost, divide by quantity, is average total cost. You can also recover it by summing average fixed cost and average variable cost. Remember, total cost is the fixed cost plus variable cost. So if you divide this by Q, it gives you the average total cost. So it can be fixed cost divided by Q, variable cost divided by Q. So you can see some numbers here. 220 divided by 2 is 110. Or you add the average fixed cost and variable cost. By the way, you must know how to fill tables like this. You could be asked in an exam to complete tables like this. Okay. We are ready to put all of them on a graph. Now, you must know which graph is which. Okay. It's easy to spot. It's easy to spot the average fixed cost. Which one is the first one? Average total cost, that's fine. It lies above and is U-shaped for same reason. Okay, your per unit cost will decline initially and then it will begin to rise as diminishing return sets in. Now, average variable cost, also U-shaped for same reason, and it must lie below the average total cost because average total cost is bigger than the average variable cost. Average fixed cost. Remember we said as you produce more initially, you are dividing a fixed number like 100 by 1, the same fixed number as you produce more. So we are saying the average fixed cost declines. Okay. So your average fixed cost can be high, but eventually it declines as you divide and divide by huge output produced. So we say this is asymptotic to the x-axis. It gets close, it gets close to the x-axis, it gets close to the x-axis, but it doesn't really touch it. Okay, it doesn't touch it because there is no way you divide a number fixed cost which is greater than 0 by a number and get 0. This result will never be 0 unless the numerator is 0, but our fixed cost is not 0. Whether you produce or not, you pay your fixed cost. The land has been rented already, office rented. So whether you decide to produce or not, you pay your fixed cost. So fixed cost is never 0. Once this is never 0, you cannot divide by anything and get 0. So this gets asymptotic to the output axis, but doesn't touch it. So it's easy to spot average fixed cost in a diagram, actually. It's the easiest. Then between the two U-shaped ones, looking like this, the one above is the average total cost because it must be higher than the average variable cost. Why? Because the average total cost is a sum of the average variable cost and the average fixed cost. Then our marginal cost, there is a reason why it goes through the minimum. I'm not sure if we are interested in that here, but this is your marginal cost. It cuts the average variable and the average total cost at their minimum point. So it's easy to spot your average fixed cost because it looks asymptotic asymptotic. It's easy to spot the marginal cost because it's the one that cuts these two at their minimum point. And it's easy to differentiate between average total cost and the average variable cost because one must be above the other. So please remember, you should be able to label these things when you see them, okay, somewhere. Okay. Now, in economics, we distinguish between time periods called short run and long run. It is important to stress, I cannot stress this enough, short run here in microeconomics or even in economics more generally. Short run is usually not a period of time which is short, no. It simply means some of your inputs are fixed. Whether you produce more or not, the inputs do not change. Your factory, your land, these are fixed inputs. And the workers, the labor is not fixed. The labor you are using changes. Okay. As long as you have some input that is fixed, if you have some input that are fixed, we say you are in the short run. In the long run, all inputs are variable. So you are actually in the long run where all your inputs can be varied as you produce more. You can sell your factory, you can build more, and so on. Okay, so maybe maybe you are even a university or a school. Even if you have 10 students, you still must use the big classroom because the room is fixed. Even with 2 students, the same big classroom. If you have been renting chairs, you have already rented the chairs to fill the room. If only 2 students come, you still switch on the light. You still fill the room with chairs. That's the short run. Some input is fixed. That's the classroom is fixed. In the long run, all inputs are variable. You are able to get a smaller class if there are only 2 students. If only 1 student comes, you move them to the smaller room. Okay. Or you have a way of reducing the class size, the building structure, and so on. Okay, it may be a bit abstract, but basically, whenever you can vary in all the inputs, anytime you want to change any of them, you can. If you're a pilot or an airliner, only 5 passengers come, you don't use the bigger airplane you have, you switch to the smallest. When you can change all the inputs, vary them, okay, then we say you are in the long run. But as long as one of your inputs is fixed, cannot be changed, okay, we call that short run. You are in the short run. So remember, in the short run, at least one input is fixed. In the long run, all inputs are variable. You can sell your existing factories, build new ones in the long run. Okay. Keynesian said, in the long run, we are all dead. Okay, so I don't know whether firms actually get there. Okay. So in the long run, remember what is ATC? Per unit cost, average total cost. So because in the long run, you are flexible, you are able to change the classroom size to accommodate the fewer children. You are an airliner, Amtrak, Starbo, Delta, KLM. If you have only 5 passengers, you actually go with the smaller plane than the bigger one so they don't consume more fuel and so on. So in the long run, okay, per unit cost, average total cost, okay, uses the most efficient mix of inputs for that quantity. So the factory size with the lowest average total cost. Okay, so in the long run, you are flexible, you can change your factory size. If in the long run, you realize that maybe there is COVID, they are not going to be buying my product, you change to a smaller factory to reflect the times you are in to reduce your cost. So in the long run, because you can vary all inputs, it is expected that the firm is producing using the most efficient mix of inputs. So that was the introduction to the theory of production, we are now going to zoom into what we call the market structures. Okay, so like I said, we are moving into various types of market structures. We have, okay, the first one, benchmark model, is called a perfectly competitive market. Okay, it's called a perfectly competitive market. I hope you can still see even when I leave the full screen mode. So, for the remaining part of the lecture, you will be introduced to various market structures. Some you identify with, but you must know what they are. When you see the market structure, you should be able to identify it. So please pay attention to details over here. And so on. So we will zoom into the perfectly competitive market. What are its characteristics? So a market is said to be perfectly competitive when it has many buyers and sellers, many thousands, so many. The goods offered for sale are largely the same. Firms can freely enter or exit. Okay. In Ghana, you can think about a trotro. There are many people buying the services of trotro drivers, many people selling the services of trotro. The goods they offer are largely the same. They are all transporting you. Firms can freely enter or exit. In this country, you can easily enter into trotro business and you can easily leave. Okay. Now, because of the requirements in 1 and 2, we say that the buyer and the seller, okay, they are all price takers. They take the price as determined by the market. You've seen in previous lectures how demand and supply interact, what we call the invisible hand, and arrive at the equilibrium price. Because there are so many buyers, a single buyer cannot influence the market price. You cannot hijack the market because you are one big buyer and you want to change the price as a result. No, there are too many buyers. A single buyer is small, atomistic, cannot change the market price. So every single buyer is a price taker. Okay? Similarly, all the sellers are price takers. There are too many sellers. You alone, you cannot hoard the goods or play gymnastic or tricks to increase or decrease the price. No, there are too many sellers. Okay, if you change your price, they move to another person and buy from. So that's what we mean, that in this market, buyers and sellers are price takers. Please remember, a price taker takes the price as given and cannot influence the market price. In this market, there are many buyers and sellers. The goods offered are largely the same. Firms can freely enter and exit. Okay, main characteristics, okay, of this market. Okay, let's talk about some of the metrics. Revenue, all right? So, because we assume firms maximize profit, that's where we are approaching. So, talk about total revenue. What's total revenue? TR, price times quantity. If a laptop is 1,000 cedis, the price, and you sell 5 of them, then your total revenue is 5,000. That's how much you make from the sales. It's not your profit, it's the total revenue. Similarly, what is average revenue, AR? Take your total revenue and average it. Spread it over how much you've produced. You want to see your average per unit revenue. Okay. Think about it. If you divide this by Q, divide this by Q, the Q will cancel this Q. That's why we are left with only P here. Okay. So average revenue is total revenue over quantity, which is the same as price. Okay. Per unit revenue. Remember our friend, a marginal again. Marginal is always the additional, right? How much does total revenue change if I were to produce one more? Is the marginal revenue. All the marginals are like that. The additional change as a result of producing one more. Okay. Change in total revenue from selling one more unit. It's also the slope of the total revenue curve. So total revenue, marginal revenue is change in total revenue over change in quantity produced. Okay. Now, this is actually the most important slide about this market for you to know. Okay, they always want to test you whether the student or the guy knows that in a competitive market, okay, perfectly competitive, but I'll be saying competitive for sure. Whether the guy knows that marginal revenue is equal to price in a competitive market. Okay. A competitive firm can keep increasing its output without affecting the market price. We've said that. As a firm in a competitive market, the price is fixed. You can sell whatever amount you want. You cannot change the price. Okay. Now, we are saying that the marginal revenue is the same as the price. Think about it. Additional revenue you get for selling an additional unit is just the price. That's it. When I sell a laptop, the price of the laptop is 1,000. When I sell this one laptop to Michael, the additional revenue from selling this additional unit is 1,000. I've just received the price. When I sell the laptop, the second laptop to Amma, so I've sold 2 laptops. Now I've made 2,000. But how much extra did I make? What was the additional revenue by selling one more to Amma? When I sold to Michael, I made 1,000. Sell to 2 people, I made 2,000. But from moving from one customer to the second, what is the additional revenue? It's 1,000. So all the time, your additional revenue is just the price you are getting. Additional revenue is just the price. How much more do I make for selling one more laptop? It is still 1,000. So marginal revenue is the price in a competitive firm. You will see in another market structure that it's not the same. Okay. Sometimes for you to sell the second unit, you must reduce the prices. And that way, this equality will not hold. But in this market, price is fixed, and so it works well. That marginal revenue is equal to price. It is only true for firms in a competitive market. It's not true in any other market structure. Please remember, the unique thing about this market is that prices are fixed, and as a result, marginal revenue is equal to marginal cost. Remember, in a perfectly competitive market or in a competitive market, marginal revenue is equal to price. Please remember this all the time. Now, remember we said firms want to maximize profit. So as a firm, what output units or quantity should you produce to maximize profit as a firm in a competitive market? Okay. We think about at the margin. Remember the lecture 1 where we are supposed to think at the margin. Okay. If output increases by 1 unit, what is the additional revenue and what is the additional cost? Compare them. Okay. Let's say I'm producing 50 units of laptop. If I were to move to 51, what is the additional revenue by producing 1 more? And what will be the additional cost? Compare them. If the extra revenue is bigger than the extra cost, go ahead and increase production. It will increase your profit. But if the additional revenue is less than the additional cost, then please reduce your output in order to make profit. So in this case, you have to reduce level of production. In the former case, you have to increase. I hope it makes intuitive sense. Okay. Compare your additional revenue to your additional cost. If it's higher, go for it. if not reduce it. Okay, so because of what we've said, we'll be able to take some numbers and then discuss this. What are we doing? We are exploring, looking for where the firm should produce to maximize profit. Okay, as you can see from marginal revenue here, okay, is equal to the price, so it is fixed. What is this? Total revenue. You need to multiply quantity by the price to get total revenue. So if you multiply these 1 by 10, you get 10. 2 times 10, 20. 3 times 10, 30. That's how you can know the price. So sometimes in an exam, they ask students to look for the price in this market. They expect them to use the connection between these two to know the price, because total revenue is price times quantity. So with these two columns, they expect you to figure out what the price is. And as we've said, you see that the price is equal to 10. Okay. Now, and we've said price is equal to the marginal revenue. Okay. Meanwhile, marginal revenue is what? Change in total revenue divided by change in price, change in quantity, sorry. So these numbers were just populated with the price. You can fill this. I think this was just also provided. And profit is what? Profit is total revenue minus total cost. So 10 minus 9, 1. 20 minus 15, 5. 30 minus 23, 7. Okay. Now, let's keep going. So you know how this came about. It's just populated for teaching purposes. But once you have 1, 2, 3, you can fill this profit. You should be able to fill the marginal revenue also. Take the change in total cost. 10 minus 0 is 10. Divided by 1 minus 0, you will get 10. 50 minus 40, you get 10. 5 minus 4, you get 1. Change in total revenue over change in quantity, you still get 10. And it's not surprising because marginal revenue is constant. This constant number here is equal to the price. It also tells you are in a competitive market. Marginal cost, change in total cost. We've done this before. So marginal cost will be change in total cost over change in quantity. Sorry. So 9 minus 5 is 4. Divided by 1 minus 0 is still 4, and so on. And then you can populate this. Now, what is the lesson here? We say when marginal revenue is bigger than marginal cost, you have to keep producing. Marginal revenue is bigger. Okay. And here they are equal. And here it is less. So don't produce here. Don't produce up to the 5th unit. Sorry. Your margin additional revenue here is less than additional cost. You probably have to produce here. Okay. You probably have to produce here where marginal revenue is equal to marginal cost. So when marginal revenue, extra revenue bigger than extra cost, don't produce 1 unit. Move, increase. Go and produce the 2nd unit. Wow. 2nd unit to additional revenue bigger than additional cost. Wow. Keep producing. 3rd unit, additional revenue greater than additional cost. Keep on. Over here, they are equal. You may want to stop and be producing 4 units and so on. If you try producing 5 units, extra units means that the additional revenue is less than additional cost. Okay, your profit, change in profit is actually negative. Okay. So you produce here where MR is equal to MC. Okay. All right. What I just did is what they are showing here. Over here, look, the MC here lies above the MR from this intersection. From this, but if you look on the right-hand side of this vertical line I just drew, If you look on, this is a vertical line, right? Look on the right hand side, this part only. You will see that the MC curve lies above the MR. So over there, anywhere above Q1 going forward, the additional cost is bigger than the additional revenue. It lies above it. And over here, additional revenue lies above additional cost. So its marginal revenue is greater than marginal cost. The one which lies above, okay, is greater. So here that you don't need to produce here. Don't produce here, here, here. Okay. Just reduce output. If you are actually producing anywhere here, your additional cost is bigger than additional revenue. So please reduce output. That's why the red arrow is showing you reduce output. If you are here also, the additional revenue, the red line, is bigger than additional cost. So please increase production until you get to Q1 where they are equal, the intersections where they are equal. Here you just produce Q1, okay? There's no sign that you should increase or decrease. That's the place that maximizes your profit, okay? So we will call that the profit maximization or profit maximizing condition. Profit maximizing condition is where marginal revenue is equal to marginal cost. Don't forget this. We are going to be using it throughout the course, that the firm maximizes profit by producing where marginal revenue is equal to marginal cost. Why? If they are not equal, if marginal revenue is bigger than marginal cost, you can actually increase profit by producing more. If marginal revenue is less than marginal cost, you can actually increase profit by producing less. So where you maximize profit is actually where marginal revenue is equal to marginal cost. Okay, in equilibrium, no tendency for a change. I think it's the same idea here. Okay. Okay, so now you know prices are fixed in this market. Price is equal to marginal revenue. Remember that. And to maximize profit, the firm should produce where MR is equal to MC. Or some people say where MC is equal to MR, or where the additional benefit is equal to the additional cost. Okay. There's something interesting here. Okay. Now that we've said that the firm should produce where marginal revenue is equal to marginal cost curve. Okay, there's something going on here. We've said that marginal cost curve will look U-shaped. It declines initially when additional labor increases production and begins to rise when it's expensive to employ additional worker. Okay, so it looks U-shaped, but there is a reason we'll be only using the rising portion. Okay, over here you cannot stop production because your costs are falling. So you actually think about profit maximization where the MC begins to rise. So you see in the graph that we may not show the full U part, but only the rising portion. That's the portion you begin to take decision. But when your costs are falling, no need to stop production there. You begin to think about profit maximization or where to stop at and keep producing at when MC begins to rise. So as you can see, this has been drawn as a straight line. Okay, it's actually supposed to go like this, but we leave that part out. It's irrelevant for decision making. Over the costs are falling, no need to stop production. Okay, you keep increasing to maximize profit. And when you get to the rising portion, you begin to ask yourself, where do I produce to maximize profit? Okay, we are looking for the firm supply. Okay, in our previous lectures, we've talked about demand curve and then the supply curve. So we are interested in the supply curve of a firm in this market. We know the characteristics of this market, free entry and free exit. You can enter the market as a firm anytime or leave anytime. You cannot change the price. Prices are fixed. The goods sold in that market are all identical. Okay, very, very similar. Those are some of the characteristics. Now I want to know the supply curve. How does the supply curve look like? It turns out that the supply curve is just the marginal cost curve. There is a caveat. We'll later talk about that. But the supply curve is just the marginal cost curve above the average fixed cost. Okay, let's keep going. So look, what's the supply curve? We are saying that, look, when marginal revenue, remember marginal revenue is equal to the price in this market. MR is equal to P. Remember, I stressed that. So it makes it a straight line and price is also fixed. So we are saying that we should produce, this is the MC. Produce where MR is equal to MC. We have established that this is where the firm should produce. What if the market price goes down? Yes, still look for where MR is equal to MC. What if the market equilibrium price went up? Yes, still look for where MR is equal to MC. At the end of the day, it looks like we are just walking along the MC curve. Look, we've marked here, mark here, mark here. We could have marked here if I shifted the MR here. So we are just walking on the MC curve to make supply decisions. And therefore, we say that the marginal cost curve is the supply curve of this firm. There is a caveat. It must be above the average variable cost, but we'll talk about that later. Okay, so this is the key point here. The MC curve is the firm supply curve. Once I know the MC curve, I know what the guy's supply curve, how it looks like. We are just, supply decisions are actually working on the MC curve. So when you know the MC curve, of course, price is fixed in that market. So you just know the quantity they will supply. Okay, so that is the idea. Okay, let's keep going. Now, there's an interesting concept here you may be interested in. What does it say? Shutdown versus exit. These are technical terms, and after this class, you should use them appropriately when you are speaking. What is shutdown? It's a short round. Remember, in a short round, at least one input is fixed. It's a short run decision not to produce anything. Maybe the market is not going well for you. You haven't decided to close the business and leave like the trotro business and go and make cassava farm or whatever. You have just decided to produce zero for now and wait and see whether the market will become better. That way, we've said you have shut down. But when you use the word exit, the guy has actually left that market. He can sell his factory, everything, and leave. He's exited. He's off completely. So know the difference between shut down and exit. Exit is long run. Shut down is short run. The guy is not producing anything, okay, but he hasn't left that industry or the market. So please, another key difference, when you shut down, when I hear the word shut down, it is definitely a short run thing, and you will still pay for the factory, your fixed cost, or your land. But when you exit, of course, you don't pay anything. So you give out the land to the owner, the factory back, and so on. Okay. Now, please pay attention. This slide can be tricky. We want to find out the condition under which a firm will decide to exit or under which a firm will decide to shut down. Of course, you compare the benefits to the cost and make the decision. So let's take a look. When you shut down in the short run, of course, you are producing zero. So what is the cost? You are losing out on revenue. You lose revenue. It's the cost of shutting down. You lose revenue, TR. What is the benefit? You don't pay your variable cost. As long as you are producing zero, you are not paying variable cost. Remember, variable cost starts from the origin, 0, 0. If you don't produce, you are not paying for raw materials. Variable cost, zero. So it's kind of a benefit. It's the reason why a firm may decide to shut down. You know, I don't want to keep importing this raw material. Let me shut down and wait. So it's a benefit. The cost is that you are losing out on revenue. Let's compare them and make a decision. You will shut down if the cost is less than the benefit. At this point, if you are not confused, play the video back and hear what I mean by the cost and revenue. The firm shuts down if the cost is less than the benefit. Okay. And of course, we can divide through by Q just to get it in per unit terms. Okay. Remember, TR over Q means what? TR is total revenue, so price times quantity over Q. Q will cancel Q, and we are left with P. That's why they have price here, P. And variable cost over quantity is just the average variable cost. So this is the shutdown condition if price is less than average variable cost. A firm shuts down when price is less than. Your price cannot even cover your per unit variable cost, per unit raw material cost. You just have to shut down and produce zero. Because the price you are going to sell the laptop is even less than per unit cost of the raw material, your variable cost. So you just have to produce zero and shut down. This is called a shutdown condition. You usually ask in an exam a lot. Please don't forget, a shutdown condition is price less than average variable cost. Okay. We'll soon talk about the long run decision, but some of you who did accounting may know cost accounting. There's something called sunk cost. From the word sunk, it has sunk already, it is gone. A cost that has already been committed and cannot be recovered. You are paid for the land for 2 years, it is gone. You cannot recover it. It's a sunk cost. Okay. It's important that the reason this has come up is that we are not looking at fixed cost here to make the decision of shutting down. Okay, fixed costs, you must pay them anyway, whether you produce or not. So it's a sunk cost, it's irrelevant. Don't think about it when you are making decision. We'll talk about this in lecture 1 video. Okay, so fixed costs are also sunk costs. The firm must pay the fixed cost, whether it produces or shut down. So they are irrelevant. Okay, whether you say, oh, should I produce zero or produce something? You cannot think about the rent of the room because whether you produce or not, you must pay. So it's irrelevant. Look at the variable cost. Okay. What about exit? Yes, when you exit, you miss out on revenue. So it is the cost of exiting. You lose revenue. What is the benefit? You don't pay your total cost. Here, we didn't just say variable cost, because in the long run, all costs are variable. So we just work with total cost. So if you leave the market and exit, you will lose out on the revenue. But there's a benefit. You don't pay total cost. So you leave the market if your cost, okay, the firm exits if the revenue loss, okay, what is going on here? Just a second. Yes, the firm exits if total revenue is less than total cost. Again, we divide through by Q. If your price is less than per unit cost, of course you exit. The price you are going to sell the product is less than per unit cost. So you just have to leave. You just have to leave. Do you get it? So if how much you are saving, which is what you are saving, the benefit exceeds the cost, then it's a good idea to exit. Okay. Okay. Benefit of exiting exceeds the cost of exiting, then it's a good idea to exit. So this is the exit condition: price less than average total cost. And shut down, price less than average variable cost. Remember, shutdown is a short-run idea, exit is a long-run idea. Okay. We are almost done with the first part of the lecture. So this is part A of this lecture. We are almost there, don't get tired. So similarly, if go back and see the inequality sign, we said the firm exits if price, look at the inequality, price is less than the price you sell the product is even less than per unit cost. So exit. But if it's greater and you are a potential firm, you are welcome to enter. Okay. So a firm will enter the competitive market if the price they are going to charge is greater than per unit cost of production. So this is a condition for entering, okay, and condition for exiting is the opposite. Okay. So here is another important slide. So extremely important. This slide is extremely important. Okay. What does this slide say? Now, because we've said in this market, by the way, this slide is so important. Because we've said in this market, firms can enter or exit freely. Because of that, in the long run, all profits are zero. Okay. By the way, there are 3 types of profit. When total revenue is greater than total cost, profit is positive. So we call it positive economic profit. But when total revenue is equal to total cost, is zero. Profit is zero. So you call it zero economic profit. Also called break even. Break even. What if total revenue is less than total cost? This is definitely a loss. You've lost. You've made a loss. So it's a negative economic profit. Now, please, in the short run, a firm in a competitive market can make any of the 3 types of profit. They can break even, they can make a positive profit, they can make a negative profit. But please remember, in the long run, LR, in the long run, the firm makes only zero economic profit in the long run. Why? I'll ask you in an exam. Is because of free entry and free exit. If firms are making positive profit in the short run, it will attract potential firms and they will come into the market, increase the market supply. Of course, when there are many firms, market supply goes up. When there's a bunch of supply, it brings price down. And so that'll be reducing the profit until the profit is competed away to zero. Let me take that again. Case 1. We have said that in the long run, these firms in a competitive market only make zero profit. Why? Assuming they were making a positive profit in the short run, it will attract potential firms to enter the market and compete the profit away to zero. What if they were making losses in the short run? Then some of the marginal firms will also exit the market. When they exit, think about it. If some firms are leaving, market supply is going down. It will also shoot up price, and the price will be going up until that negative profit will become zero for the firms that remain on the market. Okay, so because of free entry and free exit, a competitive firm only makes zero profit in the long run. If they were making positive profit, new firms enter to compete it away. If they were making losses, some firms will leave and will be leaving until the profit also gets back to zero. It's not possible to sustain positive profit or negative profit in the long run in a competitive market. That is what this slide is saying. So remember that. I'll ask you. Okay. Now, we said they will make zero profit in the long run. But why would firms produce with zero profit? Why do firms stay in business when they have zero profit? Okay, two things. We are saying that, look, two things here. Even though it is zero profit for the economist, it may be positive for the accountant, because the economist has factored in several implicit costs, the owner's time, and so on, which we said at the beginning of the lecture. By the time you factor in all those things, and the profit comes to zero, it may still be positive for the accountant. So you may still want to stay in business. Do you get it? Now, firms also stay in business for goodwill. Maybe you supply marker, the whiteboard marker we used to write on the whiteboard to teach. Maybe you supply it to the University of Ghana, and things are not going well for your business, but because of goodwill, you still want to keep supplying the University of Ghana, even at zero profit. You stay in business. And sometimes you don't want to lose your workers to your competitors. Remember the lockdown during the COVID, some private school teachers were paying their teachers so that they don't lose them to other schools. So even though you are not producing, or even when profit is zero, you still keep your workers to keep the machines not idling and rusting away. You may still produce even when profit is zero. So three main reasons why firms may produce even at zero profit: goodwill, keep producing, supplying the market at zero profit, or because you don't want machines to lie idle, not to lose your workers to other people, or because although it is zero profit, it's still positive for the accountant. So it's actually, you are still making something in the accounting books. Okay, so conclusion, okay, for the first part of this lecture, we said that, remember, in this market, key things, they produce where marginal cost equals to marginal revenue to maximize profit. In a competitive market, price is equal to marginal cost. If you put these two together, look, it means price is equal to marginal cost. If MC is equal to MR and price is also equal to MR, then these two must be equal. Price is equal to marginal cost. What is price? Price is how it signals the value of the good. How much you buy a good tells us how much the seller, how much it costs the seller. If a laptop is 1,000 cedis, it reflects the cost to the maker, the manufacturer. If you buy it for 1,000, it reflects how much you also value it. Okay, so additional cost of producing output, marginal cost, additional cost, is equal to how much society values the good. So we say this market is very efficient. Look, efficiency of the competitive market. Price is equal to marginal cost. There is no wastage. We are not ripping anybody off. How much it costs society to produce the additional unit is just how much they value it. Okay, so the competitive market is said to be efficient. Okay, and remember, firms can earn any type of profit in the short run, a loss or zero or positive profit. But in the long run, profit are just zero. Remember, they will be saying, asking you in an exam, is a competitive market efficient? Yes, because they produce where price is equal to marginal cost. Okay, how much society values the good? It's just additional, how much it costs additionally to produce the good. Think about it. Its price is less than MC. It's not a good idea. How much it costs to produce additional is bigger than how much they value the good. Okay, so it's not a good, it's not efficient. If price is greater than MC also, okay, they value it more than it costs to produce it. So you are actually not producing more. You have to produce more for MC to begin to rise and so on. Okay, so this market settles MC is equal to price is called efficient. All right, thank you. I hope you enjoyed the first part of the video. We'll continue next in the second part with a market structure called the monopoly market. I hope you enjoyed the lesson. Thank you very much. Bye-bye.